Principle of equivalence and structural equality between cosmic levels. If the same forces and sets of elements exist at the different cosmic levels, micro and macrocosm, atoms and stars, as well as the same dimensions and interrelationships between all them, then the cosmic structuring of these levels must also be similar and equivalent. Authors challenge any evidence and observation that is clear and conclusive that there is some uncommon force or element between both levels, atomic and stellar, will be proof of failure and devaluation of my cosmic and atomic model, but any evidence and observation of new coincidences in these elements at both levels will be proof and validity of my model. And this seems to be supported by the observations and measurements made to date, although occasionally the same element of the microcosm and the macrocosm have been named differently, such as, for example, the strong force in atoms and gravity in stars, due to inappropriate measurements, as noted below. These data and observations are presented in the drawings and tables, in which we first see how the known basic cosmic forces, such as gravity and magnetic forces, exist at both the atomic and stellar levels. Gravity, for example, is easily denoted and measured at our level by the attraction that stars exert on the surrounding matter and which is enormous in stellar nuclei or suns like ours. However, at the level of atomic nuclei, it is said to be very weak, not because it has been measured there, but because it has been adjusted to our level parameters. This does not seem acceptable since more than 90% of matter, and therefore the gravity of the cosmos must be in atomic nuclei, and therefore it must be extremely strong there, as its name, the strong force, suggests. But as I believe, the adjustments were made with measurements and metric units specific to our level, but without taking into account that atomic metric units are 6.28 times 10 to the power of 22 times smaller, and that the square of the gravitational distances with these coefficients would be 4 times 10 to the power of 45 on the outer periphery of atoms. Another aberration in my opinion, is the one referring to the Higgs fields and bosons, so far from observation and practical application, and so difficult to digest for a critical physicist, since both concepts already exist in classical physics and that they are the force of gravity that permeates the entire universe, and all the material particles condensed by these gravitational fields, which are those that measure their masses between them. Regarding magnetic fields, we already see from magnets, polarly arranged atoms, that they have the same form of attraction, distribution, in ion filings, and high potential as the magnetic fields exerted by celestial bodies. And looking for the magnetic fields of magnets and celestial bodies in internal electric currents doesn't seem very correct since magnets are crystalline in nature and do not move charges, and celestial bodies, for the most part, do not necessarily have any type of internal electric current, which would otherwise be gigantic. No, as explained in my model, magnetic fields predate electricity, which is itself an electromagnetic charge. What happens is that a current of electrons can unbalance and excite the magnetic fields of the atoms through which it circulates. In any case, and as shown in the drawings, both the forces and fields, gravitational and magnetic, as well as the elements and compositions of elements, are equal and equivalent at all levels, whether atoms or stars. Common structural elements such as atomic nuclei with electrons, stars with planets, electrons and leptons with neutrinos, minor and major planets with their moons, etc., are equal or equivalent. In addition, there is their behavior, forming orbital systems with larger nuclei and satellites around them. But the relative dimensions between levels are also equivalent, as are the relative dimensions of nuclear matter with its satellites, the relative dimensions of their nuclear radii and system radii, etc. And if the same force fields and the same elements exist, then their structure and behavior must be similar and equivalent from one level to another, between microcosm and macrocosm. And above all, nothing probabilistic, but rather a strict behavior of forces and elements, as we see occurs at our level. Thank you, friends, for your interest and kindness.